Well, I grew up as a child in the Y with no car. So you rode the bus to school and to classes downtown at the Y. So it was dear to me without my knowing actually some of the mission of the Y at that time. Bonnie Cox, who preceded me as president, was very, very concerned at the abuse and rape that was happening in our city. When we couldn't find places for these women, we finally jumped in and bought a house. We really fooled ourselves in thinking that we could staff that and manage it. It didn't take us too long to realize that we needed much more than that.
We were pretty crowded there, and we spent lots of time hunting around downtown since we'd always been downtown. I called in on one of my dearest friends, and her name was Rita Moore.
Barbara Eskridge, a good friend of mine, talked me into coming in the late 1970s to the Y. She knew that we needed to raise money. She knew we needed a new shelter for battered women and their children. It was considerably more challenging to raise money in 1980. Domestic violence was really hidden from society. No one talked about it. It was not given any media attention. People didn't discuss it in social gatherings. And women, these poor women, were really reticent to even go get help.
There were people on the board who were not very supportive of us having a capital campaign because I think they didn't think we could do it.
We decided that it might be a good idea to get a professional fundraiser in on this. We called a well-known professional fundraiser in Dallas. They told us they didn't feel that they could be involved in it because their research said that we could never raise more than $1 million. And we said, really? Oh, you think so? And so we thanked them very much, and they went back to Dallas. And we said, well, enough of that. We're going to do this. Back in the 70s and 80s, Edward R. Murrow and Dan Rather were the two leading news commentators. And 60 Minutes, that's what you did on Sunday evening. Everyone watched 60 Minutes. At that time, Dan Rather was leading 60 Minutes. Despite it being a really taboo subject, Mr. Rather decided that he was going to do a segment on domestic violence. This was just unheard of. The next day, we called the producers of 60 Minutes, told them what we were doing, that we were trying to raise money to build a new, very much needed shelter in Oklahoma City, and we would like a tape of that segment, and would they send us one? And they did. First thing we did was edit this tape to where it was no longer than 10 minutes. We found little individual televisions. The screen was about this large. You could put cassettes in them. And so we made copies of that, and we bought little televisions. And the men that we talked to in business, far more interested in hearing from Dan Rather on the subject than they were from us. And they were very accepting, and they thought, this man really knows what he's talking about. We need to help this. It was like night and day. That's what made the campaign the success it was then. Most of the women who come to this shelter have tried everything in the world before they got here. The shelter is usually the last thing they try in desperation, trying to survive and trying to raise the children.
Now when they come in, we are addressing not only the needs of the adult, but also the children. That has grown. We are looking at what's their immediate needs. Those are bases. But from there, we work with them to say, okay, what are the goals? What do you want for your life? We're going to work with them to determine what are the options for school and develop safety plans around whatever those options may be. We're going to work with the parent to determine, do they need to get a job? We also have our resale shop that was really designed to help them have a place in dignity, feel a sense of dignity and respect, not have to pull clothes out of a bag for them or just out of a closet. We give them coupons that they get to go shop and pick out what they need for themselves and their children. We need to take this issue and say no more. That takes everybody getting involved in one way or another.
We need to make everyone aware that it's everybody's problem. It's your coworker's problem, it's your employer's problem, it's your friend, it's your neighbor, and it affects so many people. And there are solutions and there are ways to help make our world a better place and help make it a safer place.
And I believe today the YWCA has done more to help women and children than any other organization I know of. And it has changed lives and is still doing it.
Domestic violence victims have been identified as the group with the highest post-traumatic stress than any other group in the U.S. The next closest group were Vietnam vets returning who saw active war. 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence, 1 in 4. So in sexual assault, we do over 400 forensic exams a year. That doesn't count our domestic violence forensic exams. It doesn't count the hundreds and thousands of people that go through our shelter, and we don't think about it, we push it aside.
My friend Wanda Swisher and I all went to a little house. This was the only shelter they had, and there were 3 little bedrooms. I opened a door. There was an upstairs bedroom, and it was closed, and I just opened the door. And I was stunned. I just stood there. I couldn't move hardly. There was a sweet-looking little girl who had been lying down, and she had about a month-old baby by her. And I startled her. She had been asleep. And she sort of jerked up and got up, not out of bed, but just really sat up straight. And I was transfixed because her face and around her shoulders and arms were black and blue and swollen. She had just been beaten severely, and I couldn't even believe it. And she was embarrassed, and I was embarrassed. And I just said, "Oh, I'm sorry," and closed the door. Really changed my life. It just changed it toward the direction of helping. I thought, well, I can hopefully do a little bit about that. I can do something about that.
These services are critical. We know when we get them here, we're keeping them safer, and especially those children, providing an opportunity for them to begin that healing process. You know, maybe it's you have an hour that you could come and volunteer to do something. Write a check, sign up for a monthly gift, come to our events. Whatever people can give, we can utilize that.
Volunteers are the lifeblood. You can see the results. You can see lives change. And that's so important, so very important.